going into this movie, I knew only one thing about it. That it was a big flop at a time when Bruce Willis's star was on the rise. It's all I remember. I don't know why that stuck in my brain when I was like 8 or 9 when this movie came out, but it did. So I've always kind of known this movie is the flop one that he did. That Bruce Willis made. And doing a bit of Googling and wikiing about this flick, it made me excited for it. It really did. Because you've got a comedic director who's done 2 movies I've liked before. Michael Lehman, he directed Airheads and Heathers. You've got the co-writer of Heathers, Daniel Waters. He also did Batman Returns and Demolition Man. And then you've got Steven Tezzosa, who did Die Hards 1 and 2. I guess, well, 1's pretty good. But he also did 48 Hours and Commando. So between the 2 writers, they've got the comedy and the action there. The director, whilst he's mostly known to me as for comedies, Heathers was a kind of a black comedy, so I could kind of see all the ingredients here. It's a movie that has heists and international intrigue and all this kind of stuff. So on paper, this looks interesting, to say the least. Decent cast too. We've got Bruce Willis, and then you've got Andy McDowell, James Coburn, Richard E. Grant, and Danny Aiello. So it's a solid cast as well. Yeah. The fuck happened? Hudson Hawk. Hudson Hawk is a 1991 slapstick action adventure movie. Alright, before I get into the movie, alright, here's how I would make it better by only changing one thing. This is going to be really strange too, because this movie is also, according to the credits, the story is by Bruce Willis. I'm like, okay. Right. Okay, right. The story is by Bruce Willis. It's when he's, a big star at the time. Die Hards 1 and 2 have been made. He's pretty popular in the early 90s. So I guess this is them giving, what do you want to make? And he was just like, this. And the funny thing is, alright, I'd change a lot about this movie if I could, but I know one thing that would make it better without changing anything else about the movie. Fire Bruce Willis and put Kurt Russell in there. The reason being, Hudson Hawk is kind of like a bumbling thief. He doesn't know all the ins and outs of all the plans and machinations going on around him. He gets knocked out a lot. He's goofy, he's silly, and all this kind of stuff. And it just reminded me of him doing a not as fun version of Jack Burton from Big Trouble in Little China. Alright, yeah, he does have a bit of a charisma and a presence, especially like in films like Die Hard, Die Hard 2, Last Boy Scout, other films of the era. But he seems out of place. Almost miscast in his own fucking movie. Is he bad in it? No. But someone who could do action and comedy, someone who's been in Big Trouble in Little China, Tango and Cash, things like that. I just love Kurt Russell, and I think he would have done a better job in this than Bruce Willis did. So, the gist of this movie is, it's an old movie, so if there's spoilers, who gives a fuck. Gist of this movie is, Leonardo da Vinci discovered alchemy. He can turn lead into gold. And decided to split the pieces of this machine up and put them in old relics and shit. And Hudson Hawk, who's just come out of prison, is forced to kind of track these pieces down. And, there's the CIA, there's like bad rich guys, there's all sorts of this convoluted bullshit. It's like an action adventure movie mixed with the cheesy James Bond elements, like the bad guy and his aims and all that kind of shit. Just wants to make gold and destabilize the economy. But the movie does everything kind of bad. It's all kind of kitchen sink too. So you start off watching this movie and you're like, oh yeah, he's come out of prison and this is after the Da Vinci stuff that's in the past, and you're like, oh yeah, it's funny, okay, it's going to be a bit light. And then they keep going overboard with it. Everything's too overboard. And at some point, I'm just like, make it stop. It's too much. Someone needed to tone a lot of this down. For every good joke, there's about 10 bad ones. The movie's not as... The movie... Alright, this is how clever the movie is, in my opinion. The movie is about as clever as watching a new Simpsons episode. So, yes, I'm a bit of a Simpsons snob. I'm like seasons 1 to 8 for sure, and maybe about seasons 1 to 10. Golden era, right? This movie felt like, I don't know, season 20 something. Something that's trying too hard to be what it no longer is. And this movie just tries too hard. Just way too hard, all the time. A movie can't go off the rails that was never on the rails. Like, tonally it's weird. Like, it tries to be hilarious, then there's some gruesome bits, and then some black comedy thrown in, then some action scenes, and then some kind of more slapstick comedy and other kind of silly dumbness, and just, it doesn't stick with anything. And so it kind of feels jarring all the time. And it's not good. It's not a boring film. It's just too much. And I was just like, make it stop. Just like, stop. Yes, make it stop. And let's get into the performances. Bruce is okay. Andy McDowell's always good. James Coburn's fun. Richard E. Grant, I know he's a really fucking good actor. So they must have asked him to be the hammiest ham that ever hammed. And he was like, I can do that. And he did it very well too. If Hudson Hawk's confused about the plot and what's going on, so am I at times. And I found I didn't really care either. It's a convoluted piece of garbage, really. And you can't take anything seriously in it. There's like kind of no tension. And because you can't take it too seriously, he's like, all right, we'll rely on the humor and the jokes to kind of carry this movie through. And as I said, it's not that funny. At least not to me. There is a couple funny things though. Butterfingers. Every scene with Butterfingers is this big, muscle-bound, blonde dude with a really awful haircut. He's a big, dumb idiot. And he made me chuckle every time. And that's the fact that he stole every scene he was in. He was, mwah. I love him. And I don't think he had much of a career, I don't know, but the movie needed more Butterfingers, and I probably would have liked this a lot more. Also, a different leading man. But, in terms of bad Bruce Willis movies, this is a different kind of bad. This is a, we tried bad. And he tried too hard. And it's a story by Bruce Willis. The whole thing isn't that... The movie's not that imaginative. You needed two kind of comedy writers to bring it all out. I don't know. Maybe I just don't like Bruce's sense of humor. Maybe he grew up watching The Three Stooges and thought, I can do something like that. No. No. No, you can't. I can see it if this is a guilty pleasure for some people. I can see that. And I can also see why people might hate this flick. I'm in the latter category. I think it's shit. And that's a shame too, because all the people who make this film have done better. Everyone involved has done better. But you bring all these people together with this movie and it just doesn't work. I can see why it flopped. And it must have flopped so bad that my child brain remembered that it flopped. Yeah, a 2 out of 10. Whew. That's enough Bruce Willis for this week. There's definitely more coming. I've got another trilogy of crap to go through. 2 more of that. But I'm getting off the Bruce Willis train just for a little bit. Just a tiny little smidge. Because I'll just go insane. Just go fucking crazy. Frank Stallone's in this, by the way. Just for a little bit. He's quite hilarious. I almost missed him. He looks like Sylvester Stallone. If Sylvester Stallone looked really boring and bland. You know, the cookie cutter version. Which is exactly kind of what Frank Stallone is. Oh, Sylvester's too expensive. Get Frank. Yeah. Story by Bruce Willis. That's when I knew that this movie was probably not going to be that great. I like this, I like share and subscribe, all that stuff. I wish Butterfinger's got his own movie. Let's do the thing. Oh, look, all the movies in this section keep fucking falling over. And I keep having to plug this gap with stank.